glad to have you here. We're excited about our second episode of Community Conversation. Our first episode was about health and wellness in the African-American community. And today, our second episode is going to be about becoming a U.S. citizen. And we have some great panelists for today. So we thank you for joining us for Community Conversations. Here we discuss issues relevant to our diverse communities to engage in great dialogue that leads to doing great things. Today's topic is becoming a U.S. citizen. As much as immigration is politicized, equally the process and experience of those becoming a U.S. citizen is unknown. And so today, we want to provide facts on naturalization and the experience of those who go through the process of becoming a U.S. citizen. We have a great lineup of panelists for you today. Remember, responses from our panelists are their respective opinion and should be revered as such. Things did not work out logistically for us to have the episode in Spanish, but afterwards, when we do post this, we will have the resources provided in English and in Spanish. I want to introduce our panelists, and I will tell you, after reading some of their bios, they make me feel in comparison to my life choices. So it's good to have some great panelists with such an extensive bio. We have our very own Grand Prairie Isela Mina, and she is the teen and Spanish program with the Grand Prairie Public System. She has worked in GP for almost 5 years. She has her bachelor's degree in criminal justice. We should have recruited you for the police department. It's not too late, you're young. And she's working on finishing her master's degree in higher education. She teaches a weekly bilingual citizenship class where she prepares students for citizenship interviews. So far, she's had 8 people to pass their class, and she's expanding this class this summer. You recently received an award from us, right? What was the award?
I can't remember anymore. It's been a crazy week, but I believe it was a service award. Yes, and it was for the citizenship classes that we started here at the library.
And she put it next to your Oscars, and you put it next to your Grammy Awards, so you had to make a little bit of room for it. Lined up, yes, absolutely.
I made some room.
You made some room. I want to introduce our next person, and this is another person who has a full resume as well. Arvin Saenz, did I pronounce that last name correct?
Saenz, yes.
Saenz, thank you. Arvin Saenz. He was first generation Mexican American. He was born and raised in the border town of El Paso. Before working in immigration and deportation defense, Arvin joined the nation's most elite military branch, United States Marine Corps. Our chief would love that. He's a Marine Corps as well. At the tender age of 17, field radio operator, military policeman, and corrections specialist, Arvin has visited and lived in countries abroad. After combat in 2005, he earned a bachelor's of business administration from the University of Texas at El Paso with a major in accounting. And then, of course, he still didn't have enough things to do. So then he went and worked in the business sector after working for the Department of Veteran Affairs, and went to law school where he earned a law degree from Charlotte School of Law, and did a lot of pro bono work that he gained, a lot of immigration related work related to that. And during his tenure as a law student, he volunteered for over 150 hours of his time. He's an active member of the American Immigration Lawyers Association and has volunteered legal services for various agencies as Catholic Charities, North Texas Dream Team, and the Dallas Mexican Consulate. As a chess player, I'm gonna have to get you on the board. Me and Terrence is in the background here. We're kind of practicing, getting our skills up. So we're gonna have to get you on the chess game eventually.
Let's do it.
Yes, we got to do it. Last but not least, Douglas Interiano.
You got it right. Yeah.
Damn. All right, we're moving up in the world. Before founding Prairie Immigrante Incorporated in December 2005, he was an immigration and immigration counselor and outreach coordinator at Catholic Charities of Fort Worth. He has represented thousands of immigrant families from over 55 countries, and began his legal career in September of 2000. He has a Master's of Science of Law from Jefferson School of Law in San Diego, a foreign attorney degree from the Universidad Autónoma de Durango School of Law, and an advanced certificate in immigration law studies from the city of New York. He has a Bachelor's of Arts in Spanish with concentration in criminology and criminal justice from the University of Texas in Arlington. He was recently named Apostle of the Immigrants by North Texas Catholic Magazine and received the 20 Years of Service Award from the Catholic Legal Immigration Network. So grateful to have you and the work that you do. And Maria Sante is joining us. Hey, hello, how you doing, Maria? Maria's joining us from another state. She's in another state. Where are you located, Maria?
Hi, Gerald. How you doing? I'm sorry for the delay.
No, you're fine. What state are you in right now?
Maryland. I'm in
Maryland.
Boston. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. So she's joining us from Maryland. Maria is a legal professional, graduated from the law school in the U.S. and Mexico, former director of minority outreach at the Grand Prairie Chamber of Commerce, which we will miss immensely. I will try not to cry on Zoom. It's not a pretty picture, but we will miss you. And Maria is passionate for building bridges between different communities. Her success is based on her ability to work, focus on her skills and knowledge across cultures. She's a mother of two, lives in a very quiet city in Texas, and she holds a law degree from Washington University School of Law and a bachelor's degree in law from the Universidad Autónoma del Estado de Mexico. So as you can see, we have quite the panelists, and so I want to kind of get into their knowledge base, because once again, we hear a lot about immigration, and so I want to start off with, and Arvin, if you don't mind, what are the benefits of becoming a United States citizen?
Yes. First and foremost, I want to thank you for having me speaking in this forum. I appreciate your organization entrusting me with the knowledge to disseminate to all your viewers and your members. The benefits of naturalizing are that you can vote, right? You have a voice. You can run for office. It's a lot cheaper to be a citizen. You won't have to pay the renewal fee. I think it's like 500 and change every 10 years to renew your green card. You can have travel outside of the United States for extended periods of time. For those people that have green cards, typically they don't want to stay outside of the country for more than 180 days unless they have like a special permit to be outside. So you won't have the government keeping tabs as to how many days you've been outside of the country. And it's a lot easier re-entry. You don't necessarily get a secondary or extra line of questioning when you come into the country when you are a U.S. citizen. You also have the benefit of having a more just due process. This is something you won't find on the internet if you were to research the benefits. In my experience, one of the biggest benefits is that whenever you are, for example, unjustly accused of a crime, already as it is, our jail and bail reform system needs much revision. Many people accused of crimes cannot bond out of the process. They have to remain incarcerated. And that problem is pronounced, or it's more prevalent with people with that are not citizens. Whether you're a resident or you're someone that's undocumented, you have to kind of be screened twice. You have to go through the bond process and the criminal process, and also in the immigration context, which means that you wouldn't experience the full due process of law when you are a lawful permanent resident. The other benefits are that you can petition for more family members as a U.S. citizen as opposed to a lawful permanent resident. You can petition for parents, married children, and siblings, whereas with lawful permanent residents, you're limited to only spouse and minor unmarried children. You can also pass your citizenship to other people a lot easier. If you have kids abroad and you're a U.S. citizen, it's a lot easier for them to, oh, I just got a little pop-up, sorry. It's a lot easier for you to pass your citizenship almost automatically to children that are born abroad once they come into the United States, a lot more than if they were resident, then you'd have to basically just go through the long, arduous residency process. Absent any fraud that may have occurred or huge mistakes in your previous applications, if you get citizenship, absent any horrible things that may have happened that got you your residency, you won't be deportable. That's a big one. You can't be deported. You're a U.S. citizen, and therefore you would have the right to stay in the country. You're not insulated, right, from punishment and if you commit crimes, but at least you don't have that added worry. Citizens can benefit from access to more jobs, working for the government, state, local, and federal, lending programs, grants, scholarship, basically taxpayer money that's earmarked for U.S. citizens. And the other benefit is that you can get a U.S. passport, which is one of the best. You'd be able to travel to over 180 countries in comparison to, for example, a Mexican passport or a Salvadoran passport. I think you can only travel between 162 and 137 countries. So you have a pretty strong passport when you're a U.S. citizen, and that's just a summary of the benefits to becoming a U.S. citizen.
Wow, it really sounds like it kind of establishes you more, kind of opens you up for more rights, so to speak, or the more solidarity of those rights. I noticed, Isela, that you were kind of nodding your head when you talked about the cost. Is that something that you're familiar with?
Well, I just, from experience, like my mom, she wants to be a U.S. citizen, but soon she's gonna have to go through renewing her residency. So that's just another cost on top of later on when we apply for citizenship, that's another set of costs. So it's just like you said, it could be like $500. The application for citizenship, if you're using an attorney, you're looking to upwards like $900. I hear people will spend, so costs a bit much.
Wow, and with our recent inflation, that could be quite a bit. We're all kind of feeling the sting. And so when you kind of hear about the rights, and Maria, if you could, and of course anybody can chime in after Maria speaks on this, but what are some of the reasons people are compelled, because there's a lot of pride in the countries that people come from, but what are some of the reasons that they're compelled to leave their country and come to America?
I'll say that one of the main reasons, it is the need of achieving a better life, of achieving success, but also most of the immigrants, we came to this country in order to improve our lives, also to give a better life to our children. And you never know, there are so many other political, social reasons in our native countries that they are probably not very well known, but some of them, let's talk about Venezuela, let's talk about El Salvador. Some of these countries, the main situation, it's in regard of crime. It's in regard of fleeing from situations where the country, in fact, has become not only sustainable, but unsustainable, but also so dangerous to put the person's life on risk. And as a human being, that's one of the rights that we have in order to pursue a better life. So I'll say that those kind of situations, and also the improvement and the reflection of being successful in life is one of those opportunities of those main subjects of why we immigrate from our native countries.
Wow, and that's interesting you should say that, because a lot of times I look at the big thing now is a lot of retirees are expats, but one of the concerns that they have is, even though your dollar may go further, what is the stability of where you're going? So you kind of weigh those options to the safety of what you want to do. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some very safe countries out there, but there's one of the things that you do have to weigh, and that's kind of the benefit of being a United States citizen, is that we do have stability despite our differences. We do have differences, but despite that, there is some stability that we enjoy. And so working on this process, Isela, and am I pronouncing your name right?
Isela.
Isela, okay, all right. Isela, can you explain what is the naturalization test and the different parts of it, and kind of what the success rate is at?
Yeah, so as part of the naturalization process, applicants applying for citizenship must pass a two-part citizenship test. The first part of the test is the English test that assesses the applicant's ability to read, write, and speak in the language. An applicant will need to speak English, and it's determined by, so the officer in the interview will have the N400, which is the application for naturalization. So based on the answers to the questions from the N400, that's how they'll determine if the applicant can speak English. For the reading test, applicants must read 1 out of 3 sentences correctly. And for the writing test, applicants must write 1 out of 3 sentences correctly to demonstrate their ability to write English. And then the second part would be the civics test. So this evaluates the applicant's knowledge of American history and government. So applicants must study the 100 civics questions, because during the interview, applicants will be asked upwards to 10 questions from a list of 100 questions, and they must answer 6 out of the 10 questions to pass the civics portion of the test. And the success rate, according to the US Citizenship and Immigration Services, the national rate as of June of last year was 91%. But for like our audience, I just wanted to share, there's hope, if you don't pass your citizenship interview. So if you don't pass, you'll be able to retake the whole exam, or just a portion of the part you didn't pass. But the questions on the second test will be different from the first time you went. And the immigration officers, if you don't pass, will reschedule you for re-examination, which usually takes about 60 to 90 days from the first time you went to your appointment. So we do get a lot of people who come to the library because we have a citizenship class. Usually a lot of those people, they studying on their own, and then they just call me. They're like, hey, you have citizenship classes at the library. I didn't pass. I need help. And then that's when we just, reevaluate and just give the tools and resources for them to be able to pass that second time.
And I just wonder, and I wonder if my panelists would agree that 91% comes from the fact that they're motivated. Yes. These are very motivated individuals that when they start this process, they have some very reasons that are very passionate to them. I was just curious, how many natural born citizens do you think would be successful on this test after you looked at it and you studied it? Isela, how do you think we would fare people who have been born in America, the majority of their lives?
We play this little game since I teach this class here at the library, where people will hear the things that I have the students, study and stuff, and they're like, I would never pass this. I have no idea what you're talking about. And like people who come and their dream is to become a US citizen. They're studying this, and a lot of these people, English is not their first language. So I just can't imagine how hard it is to, learn history from, a country you didn't grow up in or in a language that's not yours. So I admire the people who come and they study hard. And I know, I'm just really proud of the students we've had in our classes, because, this could be really difficult, especially if you don't know English.
I think also it kind of speaks to us to be more diligent, that if we are born here, to take a little bit more interest in the history and about our country and the history of where it's from, and to be able to answer those questions as the people who are just as passionate, trying to be a part of here. And today, someone who helps with that process, Douglas, how are we doing today?
Doing good, sir. Thank you for the
Good,
invitation.
good. We're excited to have you. He is also, his office is located here in Grand Prairie. It's good to have so many people that contribute to the success of our community. And I want you to tell our audience a little bit about what is Proyecto Inmigrante, who do you serve, and a little about the immigration process. How long is it?
Absolutely. Well, we are a immigration legal services provider, 501c3 nonprofit institution that was created back in 2005. We are accredited and recognized by the U.S. Department of Justice and the Board of Immigration Appeals. And we serve the low-income families who are not able to pay for legal representation with private attorneys. So we have 4 different offices. Our headquarters is in Grand Prairie. We just moved our office headquarters to Grand Prairie. I'm very happy that we're here. So that community have an additional resource to come to, right? But we do have an office in Texoma, the area of Texoma, which is in Wichita. That office serves South Oklahoma as well. We have a office in El Paso that serves those communities from El Paso, but also parts of New Mexico. And of course, our office in Irving that serves the Dallas area. But what we do is we do provide legal assistance in not only in citizenship, but also in family-based petition, immigration family-based petitions, humanitarian cases, as well as some court cases. Very limited on court cases because it's a lot of work. But we do serve the community in matters related to immigration. And one of the things that we do provide pro bono services is to legal permanent residents who fulfill the requirements of becoming naturalized citizens. Every year, Proyecto Inmigrante provides helps over 1,000 applicants in North Texas. And this is one of the things I wanted to share with you and your audience, Yaron, and is that in Texas, there is a little bit over 1.1 million of LPR, legal permanent residents who, are ready to naturalize, but they have not taken that step to do so. Out of that, over 300,000 of those people reside in the North Texas region, and I'm pretty sure that Grand Prairie, I can't remember the exact numbers, but I think it's around 30,000 perhaps to 45,000 that are legal permanent residents ready to apply for citizenship. And the North Texas, the DFW, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, is a little bit over than 250,000. So yeah, there is a lot of those folks up there that requires our help, and here we are to provide that assistance to them. Yeah.
and I'm just reading the chat here. They're singing your praises in the chat, you and Arvin. So we really appreciate your work here in this area to help out our citizens. And then also I want to remind our audience, we do have a question and answer box. You can type your questions in. We'll be sure to get those addressed throughout the today and at the end of our at the end of our forum. And one of the things I was kind of curious too, Douglas, and anybody else can chime in on this, that N400, it has three different, it has granted, it can be granted, it can be continued, it could be declined. What exactly does that mean? I was kind of interested on the continued part.
Right. So I guess you're referring to the process of the M400. Of course, there is some eligibility requirements that someone has to fulfill according to the immigration and nationality law. And those are that ones need to be, in order to apply for naturalization through the M400 process, the applicant must be at least 18 years of age at the time of filing the M400 application with the service, with USCIS, have been a lawful permanent resident for the past 3 years or 5 years, depending on which naturalization category you are applying under, have continuous residence and physical presence in the United States. And there are some requirements that everybody needs to look in very detail. We don't want to, someone who don't qualify, who thinks that they fulfill the requirements, might be ended up in diversion proceedings. So be able to read, write, and speak basic English, demonstrate good moral character. There is a definition for that. Demonstrate knowledge and understanding of U.S. history and government of this country. Of course, be willing to take the oath of allegiance. So the whole process takes, what I usually explain, the way that usually explains is there is 4 steps, right? Step number 1, when you file the M400 with the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. The second is when they receive, the applicant receive a fingerprint appointment, and that happens probably within 60 to 90 days of the date of filing. Then comes the naturalization interview, probably 6 months from the date of filing. And then the oath ceremony, probably taking 60 to 90 days after they pass the citizenship exam. So we're talking about the whole process taking between 8 to 12 months, if that's something to say. You have 2 opportunities to take the naturalization exam. If you don't pass at the first time, then you are given a second opportunity just to fulfill the part that you failed to pass. And then if you are successful, then you are scheduled to do the oath ceremony, right? But if you're not, then they deny the process, and then there is a process for an appeal process, right? You can appeal that decision. But once you need to look into the appeal process, what are the chances of the applicants to win an appeal before, the USCIS? But if it's a matter of not speaking English, then, the applicants must know that there is a rule, there is an exemption that they can take the naturalization citizenship test in their native language. And that rule is, if you are 50 years old and you've been legal permanent resident for the past 20 years, you're 55 years old and you've been a legal permanent resident for 15 years. And if you're 65 years old and you've been a legal permanent resident for 20 years, then you get to study only 20 questions. So the process is very simple, it's very clear, and it's not as intimidated as someone would believe that would be. Of course, if you have criminal issues, criminal history, then the advice is for those applicants to, come and consult with a nonprofit organization who like Proyecto Migrante, Catholic Charities, Raíces, who does this process for free, or go with a private attorney, who is specialized in immigration and who will know the law and will guide them and represent them in the whole process.
And speaking of that, you said someone who's going to guide them in the process. Arvin, if someone does have a criminal record, how is that going to impede them from filing for citizenship? Oh, you're on mute, Arvin.
We can hear you.
Sorry. It won't necessarily impede you to apply. Crimes are categorized in a myriad of ways with immigration. You have crimes involving of moral turpitude, you have aggravated felonies, and then you have deportable offenses. And that in of itself can be a conversation for many semesters. But typically, and as Douglas aptly mentioned, you have to be a resident for 3 to 5 years, right? Depending under which category you're applying for citizenship. During that period, you have to have what they call good moral character, and that's a legal term of art. Now, if you have any pending criminal matters during that qualifying period of good moral character, then typically immigration will not approve your application, no matter how minor the infraction may be. They typically won't grant any naturalization status if you have pending charges. Now, what they are looking for outside of that good moral character period are things that make you permanently inadmissible and permanently barred, things that would have made you deportable, but they slipped through the cracks. You're able to get your green card or whatever. They were very old crimes that just never popped up. People need to understand that when you apply for naturalization, and the mere fact that you were able to renew many times with your green card doesn't mean that you're not deportable. Crimes at one point were not considered serious can now be considered serious, and that's due to the advent of the previous administration having appointed immigration hardliners, we'll call them. You may have been convicted of a crime that didn't make you deportable back then, but now it does. So you may not want to open Pandora's box and apply for naturalization, as you may open yourself up to not only a denial for naturalization, but now you are in removal proceedings or deportation proceedings, as most people have come to understand them to be. So a criminal history can affect you. And most importantly, it can implicate you in a much more serious manner than you think, than just a simple denial. So basically what immigration is going to look for is the seriousness of the crime, whether it was a conviction or not. And if you have any arrests, that can also prevent you from gaining citizenship and maybe implicate you. For example, if you're asked about an arrest that was later, charges were dismissed, and you admit to the elements of a crime that the officer will make up in his head, right? Because a lot of them will act like they're criminal adjudicators. If you admit to those essential elements of a crime, that could also make you disqualify you for citizenship, and even worse. So yeah, criminal is very, very big. It's a very fluid topic, and it's because of the way the Immigration Nationality Act was written. Very ambiguous. What is a crime involving moral turpitude? No one knows. Every state has a different definition, and the federal definition is changing. What is a crime of violence? No one knows. It's just something that is very subject to interpretation depending on the administration and the culture around the time in which we have to answer those questions. So yeah, you would need to consult with an immigration attorney very well versed in criminal matters. A lot of people don't like to hear the conclusion that you don't qualify for naturalization, and most importantly, you can actually lose your residency if this crime from 1990 pops up. So yeah, it can affect you.
Wow. I mean, there's several reasons why we should. It helps to do our best at all times, and this being another one. So with all this in mind, is what should be, you talked about a little bit. So the first step, if someone's considering immigration and changing their status, would be to consult legal advice or use the services of a professional before doing so.
Yeah, and I'll add a little more to that. It's good to consult with several people. I tell people, even in my consultation, go and talk to several people with a good reputation and get different opinions, and go with the person that inspires the most confidence. But if there are any criminal matters, anything, just an arrest, consult with a few attorneys and just go with the one you feel is the right one for you, and get because we're not infallible. We make mistakes. Everybody here that practices law knows we make mistakes. We're not perfect. So it's good that if you're engaging in a transaction that's very important, perhaps the most important transaction of your life, you have to get the best ideas out there and multiple opinions. That's my personal philosophy, but you know.
No, I think that's good. I think in any decision, get a multitude of opinions and outlook. I mean, it's always helpful to have someone with different set of eyes on there. And I'm kind of curious in our next question, because I think I want to hear from all our panelists, but I'll start with Isela. Is what do you feel is the biggest misconception about the naturalization process or the people who seek it?
So I talked a little bit about it. Usually I'll meet a lot of people, that, put in their application, they get a date for their interview, and then they fail and they come back and they realize we have citizenship classes. So they'll call and be like, well, what did I do wrong? I studied the 100 questions. Well, that's great. That's only one part of the test. There's a whole second part that, you ignored. So I think the biggest misconception or like this biggest mistake that people, getting prepared for their interview do is that, they don't know there's two components to the naturalization test. So they don't know how to prepare. So someone would just study the 100 civics questions, but by only studying that part, you are only prepared for 50% of the test. There's still the English component, which is, you have to practice speaking, reading, and writing English. So those are a lot of things I see here with that people come to my class. Oh, someone's walking behind me. So I would just say, this test isn't hard. Especially, you do have time to study and prepare for your interview. And it's just a lot of practicing that English language, especially if that's the thing that the applicants are fearful or feel nervous about, which is usually the people we see here, is that they don't feel confident in their English. So I say biggest thing is to practice English, at all times. That whole time from the day you get your date for your interview, for your test, just practice English, practice speaking at home with your kids, listen to the radio, watch TV, because you don't want, to pay all that money just for you to get denied and just fail because you failed to practice that part of the test.
Good point. And I see Maria nodding her head. Maria, what are some of the biggest misconceptions about the naturalization process or the people who seek it?
I agree with Isela. Definitely, I think that's one of the biggest fears that we have at the time, not only of submitting the application, but also at the time that we know that we have to go in front of an immigration officer and do. There are so many resources nowadays, so many organizations that they provide English classes, conversational English classes, and also the citizenship classes. So it has become a little bit of more easier to find help. I always tell people, don't be afraid of the appointment. Don't be afraid of the interview. It is something easy. Maybe we look at it like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get licensed on something, right? And my English gotta be perfect, and my writing and the reading, everything gotta be perfect. But it's not like that. People have to go with the mindset of that they already know enough. They already studied. They went over the 100 questions. The officer is only gonna do mostly 6 out of 10 questions. And the best that you prepare yourself is the best that you have, the best knowledge that you will have in order to provide the best answers. Also, I believe that for us, I'm talking in regards of my native language, which is Spanish. Sometimes it's complicated and it's kind of fear barrier that you have at the moment that you need to face that exam, that interview. So most of the times the people know the answers, people know and communicate, and they do everything on in daily basis in English. But at the time that the interview is happening, fear and the nerves, they escalate, and probably that's why people misses the opportunity to become a citizen on the first opportunity. I also I've seen that there is a misconception of just looking at the building. People are afraid of that. Okay, I'm gonna get into a governmental building. I'm gonna get into the USCIS building. What I'm gonna be told. They are afraid also of the officers, and they are very nice. They know that you are doing your best, and that's something that we have to pass on to whoever we are helping to get this interview done, that they have to be confident. They have done everything on their hands to pass the interview, and everything is going to be successful. At the end, the government knows that being a resident is not exactly like the greatest place that we can be in the US. So as soon as we become citizens, a lot of rights, a lot of responsibilities, a lot of commitments comes with it. So of course, that's the maximum desire or the objective of the government to do this. So of course, officers will not be exactly acting as sometimes we think in our mind at the time of doing that interview. There are also opportunities for people who have been here for more years than others, if they are elderly people as well. There are so many opportunities that I'll say that it's just a matter of that, the mental barrier in regards to the language, and also the fear of facing the interview. Those, in my opinion, are the main things to create misconceptions in general of the interview.
And I like that you brought up the officers in the building, because for different people who come from different countries, there is a fear because law enforcement may be different. Rules of engagement may be different. So that's definitely a hurdle that they want to, that they need to be aware of. That's different, that they'll be met differently than some of their experiences that they had previously. And as we kind of talk about those barriers, Douglas, if you are an immigrant and you currently do not have legal status, what is your biggest challenge to change your status?
Well, the first thing is there's a challenge of disinformation, right? So people tends to be afraid, and so with that comes, might not qualify. They're disqualifying themselves before seeking legal services. But the reality is, if you are undocumented, number one, you have to be able to seek a legal services, legal provider. For two reasons. Listen, we know that we have an immigration law that rules the process and who can petition for you and who could not. But if you don't have, the challenge is if you don't have a family member that can petition for you, right? Under the Immigration and Nationality Law. If you don't have an employer that can petition for you, that can file for you, or you don't qualify for a humanitarian immigration benefits. Those are some of the challenges. But you won't be able to learn if you qualify or not unless that you reach out for help, unless that you first present your case before an immigration attorney, before an organization who will analyze the case. In the past 20 years, what I have seen is the disinformation. There is people out there, there are organizations, there are good and bad attorneys too. There are resources everywhere that people can reach out to. But they tend to, believe their neighbors and that they might not qualify. But really, what it is, if you don't have documents in the United States and the fact that you don't have anybody that can petition for you, you might be unlikely, and you won't be able to legalize your status. There is a lot of benefits in the immigration and nationality law that unless that you present your case to an expert, they will be able to analyze this and let you know if you qualify for one of those benefits.
Thank you. That's great. And I kind of want to hear from even, and I know we've been talking about facts and figures and kind of more from an objective standpoint, but Maria, from your own personal experience, because you went through this process to be a U.S. citizen, do you mind sharing with our audience your experience in that?
Sure, absolutely. I'm an immigrant from Mexico. I arrived 10 years ago, well, almost 12. And what I had to do, it is to adjust my status through marriage to a US citizen. After that, I didn't seek my citizenship 3 years after, which the law allows you to do that whenever that you marry to a US citizen. So I waited a little bit more, and however, I fall into that category, but I didn't become a citizen until a few years after. At that moment, I didn't have the resources to pay for that because the fee is not as expensive as many others, but it means a little bit for a family, right? So I couldn't do that. I had to study, yes, the 100 questions. I had to improve my English, my writing, the listening as well. But what I have to say is this was the best decision ever. As a resident, yes, you have a lot of good things around you. One of them, of course, is that now you have a legal status in the US. But however, you always have to comply with, having a good moral, to having good behavior. Also, you cannot vote. You don't have the right to vote. So as soon as I became a citizen, all that situations changed. I was able to seek for the citizenship of my children, and also I was able to vote. For me, that changed a lot things around me and my family. And as Douglas said, it is easier whenever that you go out to another countries and then you come back. You feel welcome. You feel part of all the things that are around the country. You now know that anything that you do supports your country, and that you have the opportunity to become, and that you have the opportunity to do things that is not only now for you being a resident. It is now for your country because you are a citizen. I don't think, and I don't see myself honestly as a citizen with a different range or with a different value. Honestly, I feel that I am a citizen with the same value of whoever has that was born in the US. This is my country. I present my respects. I do. I comply with all my obligations as a citizen, but also I work hard for help my community, and also to give my best on every single thing that I do every day.
Wow, I love that. And I love the point that you pointed out, that you don't feel your value as a citizen as any less than anyone else in their path. And I think that's a great point to make. We want to, in the interest of time, we definitely want to have time for questions from our audience. But what I do want them to know before we move to question and answer from our audience, panelists, if you would kind of tell us about some of the things that you have going on, the services that you provide, or maybe events that you may have going on. And Arvin, I'll start with you.
Yes, we are an immigration law firm based out of Irving and Fort Worth. We primarily focus on family-based petitions, removal defense, and special visas like special immigrant juvenile status, VAWA, Violence Against Women's Act, U visa, those are victim visas, and extensions of temporary visa status. We primarily represent people that are removed proceedings here in Dallas, but we do venture out to other parts of the country. For those of you that don't know, immigration law is a practice that any immigration attorney or accredited representative could practice nationwide. So we're almost in every state litigating on behalf of our clients.
Wow, that's impressive. Isela, tell us a little bit what you got going on with your Oscars and employee awards. And
I just wanted to let everyone know that our Grand Prairie Libraries has free bilingual citizenship classes for anyone who's getting ready to apply for citizenship and wants to get prepared for that interview. If they want to practice their English, wants to study the basics of American history and US government, I invite them to the Grand Prairie Libraries this summer. Our classes start in June, and it's an 8-week course for free at the main library. So all of our website, our library Facebook will have that information. So if you know anybody who would need this free service, we're more than happy to help them and get them signed up for those classes.
Yes. I love our award-winning library. There's so many different resources. Please check them out because they have so many great services. And speaking of great services, my new friend Douglas, tell us a little bit about what you got going on, Douglas.
Of course, thanks. But we do have offices, our main offices in Grand Prairie. We have offices also in Wichita Falls and Irving, which serves the Dallas part also. Our main focus is family-based immigration. We do provide assistance with family petitions, adjustment of status, consular processing, waivers, renewals of green card, renewal of DACAs. We provide assistance with the completion in the M400 applications for free. We also have pro bono work that we have done in the past and continue to do so. So if people lack the sources to pay an attorney, then they can stop by our offices and we will more than happy be able to serve them. But we also help in the process of prosecutorial discretion. We're very limited on court cases, court representation. But we do help a lot with family-based petitions as well, renewal of green cards and also renewal of their visas if they're in the United States. We are also big on serving people who are victims of domestic violence, U visas, what we call humanitarian visas, right? And victims of trafficking, among others.
And you and Arvin mentioned that because I think that's something I do want to point out, because women who are victims of abuse and violent crimes, Grand Prairie is not a 287 city. And so we don't care about your immigration status. If you're someone in an abusive relationship, a violent relationship, reach out to the police. There's no fear of reprisal, regardless of your immigration status, if you reach out and need to get out of a relationship that's unsafe. So I do want to say that Douglas and Arvin, y'all bring up a very good point, that I don't want them to feel like they have to stay because of their immigration status. So that's a very great point. Maria's making new changes and grieving us leaving the chamber. Tell us what you got going on, Maria.
Where am I going? Well, I'm pursuing my attorney license, the Texas bar license. So I'm still on that dream and I'm gonna achieve it. So you will know soon.
Well, you know, Maria, you can use two of my new friends here, Arvin and Douglas. I'm sure they will lend you some assistance in that. So these gentlemen will be more than happy to help you. I'm pretty sure.
Sure,
I
sure they do. So
yes.
I had the oh my gosh, I forgot the word. I had the great opportunity to meet Douglas and to, maybe he doesn't remember, but I used to work as a volunteer with him in an office that he had in Forward for Proyecto Inmigrante, maybe 10 or more. But I love this. The legal field is that represents my heart, and I do want to continue for the rest of my life on that field. So I'm sorry, I had to leave.
Well, community conversations leading to community connections. I do want to get to one of the questions of our audience, and speaking to Douglas, does Proyecto Inmigrante help deferred action beneficiaries with legal advice for status adjustment when married to a U.S. national?
Yes, we do. We provide that service, not only offer, but also if they require legal representation, we can do that as well.
Okay. And also Arvin answered a very good question that was on our question answer on the N400. Would the applicant have to go back to their country of origin if they're denied and wait on a decision before re-entering the U.S.? And Arvin, can you kind of share the answer that you gave them?
I understood the question to mean if they apply and they have to leave, not if they apply, they're denied.
Gotcha.
And they have to leave. That's how I understood, but I'll answer it in both ways.
Okay.
If you're denied the N400, then assuming you've tried a few times and you've exhausted that, you can retry. If you feel that they did something wrong, you can appeal. And in certain circumstances, you can go to federal court, since a federal court would have jurisdiction over a denied N400. You're basically suing the government, which we've seen a lot of that happen during the previous administration. You don't now, in answering the question the way I understood it the first time, it's not like residency where sometimes you have to leave the country and come back. I understood it to mean, do you apply and then you have to leave and then come back with your citizenship? You don't do that. In fact, you're going to be advised not to do that because you have to live in the country for the majority of the last qualifying period, whether it's 3 years or 5 years. Immigration will look at 12 months like in a moving block, and you had to have been in the country mostly during that time. So don't leave if you're applying for citizenship.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Listen, I have enjoyed this. If you have questions, our attendees, if you have questions and things like that, please give them to us. We'll pass it on to our panelists and do our best to get it answered. And something I want to read before we close, and it's real interesting. I went to U.S. Custom and Immigration Services and had the rights and responsibilities of a citizen, and the rights being freedom to express yourself, freedom to worship as you wish, right to a prompt fair trial by jury, right to vote in elections for public officials, right to apply for federal employment requiring U.S. citizenship, right to run for elective office, freedom to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then something key to kind of hone in for all of us is the responsibilities of a citizen: support and defend the Constitution, stay informed of the issues affecting your community, participate in the democratic process, respect and obey federal, state, and local laws, respect the rights, beliefs, and opinions of others, participate in your local community, pay income and other taxes honestly and on time, and serve on a jury when called upon and defend the country if the need should be arise. And so whether you were born or a naturalized citizen, it would be nice if all of us were a little bit mindful of our responsibilities to one another each and every day. And so in closing, I want to thank our panelists for the perspective and wisdom on becoming a U.S. Citizen. Huge thanks to Anna Enriquez, Kay Brown, and Terrence. They're behind the scenes. They help keep me together. So I'm so grateful for them. The city of Grand Prairie is honored to celebrate Cinco de Mayo this month, and we will continue to create programs that remove barriers for us so that we can work, live, and play together in Grand Prairie. We want to thank our wonderful panelists again for their insight and time. Please check out www.gptx.org/inclusion for our other inclusion initiatives and a recording of this series. Audience, thank you again for tuning in, and we hope you were informed and inspired, and we look forward to you joining us once again at the next community conversation. Thank you all. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.